The purpose of the UAE Government Excellence Model is to drive the future of government with constant transformation and realignment of what the government does in relation to a changing goalpost in order to allow the UAE government to constantly continue its quest for progress and advancement towards establishing itself as a role model government for the future. With this in mind, the Government Excellence Model is not managed as a static, predictable approach to developing the fundamentals of excellence at the heart of government and allowing each individual government entity to strengthen its core functions and build maturity that will allow it to deliver at the expected level and seek to advance towards the achievement of a leading competitive position. The question that raises itself, therefore, is number one, what is meant by dynamic management? Dynamic management is a current mindset of managing with unpredictability and having to constantly seek relevance in terms of what an organization does and transforming so as to exploit opportunities, particularly through the digital revolution, and meeting, moving and changing in a speedy manner customer needs and expectations. This requires a mammoth effort for any government entity's efforts to deliver the right level of performance with the right standards of quality for the right customer segments and in the right way at the right time. Dynamic management, therefore, relies on an organization that operates as a living organism, connected internally and externally in order to feel the pressures that an organization faces and counter any likely hostile factors that will impede its progress, but by the same token to exploit and explore, connect, leverage and build a future that is sustainable through collaboration, smart partnerships and the smart exploitation of technological advancement that keeps every organization current in its thinking, agile in its decision-making and its adaptability, resilient to adverse change, and disruptive in its behavior to absorb new changes and create new models that are future-oriented. Number two, the key components of an excellence-oriented approach based on dynamic management. When describing the government excellence model as a dynamic ecosystem, the key differentiating factor is that everything that happens at any point in time is relative in terms of its suitability as a mindset, in terms of the relevance of what an organization does at a specific time, and also relative in terms of performance and achievements at a specific time span. A change is constant and adaptability is part and parcel of guiding every organization to remain relevant and fulfill its obligations with internal changes, but also in terms of external macro factors that could require dramatic changes or could support the organization to steer itself out of trouble or move in with the tide in order to exploit available opportunities for its future growth and development. There are 8 fundamentals to describe the meaning of transformation-based government excellence approach that describes the DNA of the government excellence model. A vision is not a tablet of stone, but rather it's one that is managed dynamically and revisited so that it continues to inspire and drive ambition through what is referred to as an elevation mindset. A vision is not static and must constantly be assessed on the basis of its suitability, relevance, appropriateness, and also in terms of measuring whether it is ambitious enough for the organization. The traditional approach to defining a vision is that a goal is set for the future and organizations work on the basis of reaching the final destination and realizing the vision with assumptions that everything else is static and that there is no need to disrupt, but rather to maintain the course by injecting constancy of purpose and managing through a linear, static approach. The second aspect associated with the excellence approach that is dynamically driven is that strategy itself has to be managed in an agile way by allowing the organization to change direction if need be, to revamp its value proposition, to enhance its goals and objectives, and to exploit opportunities that are emerging as tempting and attractive additional boost to the existing strategy for allowing the organization to move faster and perhaps achieve at a higher level. Execution, therefore, of a modern strategy is no longer a lock-in principle of 3 to 5 years of dedicated resources and static management in a rigid manner without any leeway for exploring opportunities or changing the course if need be. The wider redefinition of enablement. Enablement happens with the existing capital, whether it's human or particularly digital, or even if it is based on insight. This is to allow an organization to deploy its enabling force for driving value creation and delivering at the highest level to its primary and secondary stakeholders. Enrichment is the plasma that is nourished through the innovation fertilizer to allow it to constantly adapt, realign itself, renew itself, transform itself, and innovate so that it remains current, relevant, and impacting at the highest level possible. On the other hand, experimentation is to allow the organization to gauge the future and plan to renew itself by radical transformation and by disrupting the existing modus operandi and create new models that are fit for the new purpose and which will serve better in an ambitious future. The deployment of capabilities and once again dynamic excellence based on GEM is about building the right capabilities for the right time and for delivering the right level of value. Capabilities are lagging in terms of their development and are not to be considered as building blocks that can be purchased, acquired, or developed with speed. Excellence maturity in this context is to gradually build competence in applying know-how that can create distinctiveness. The measure of effectiveness of capabilities referred to as effectuation is through building distinctiveness and positioning the government organization in a solid manner with a know-how that cannot be emulated and which certainly will be hard to copy. Service in the context of a digital era has to be defined in terms of customer journeys, relative approaches to value creation, and more importantly, if the end result is to delight the customers and impact on their happiness, the service-oriented philosophy has to be based on customer journeys and customer experiences that can move from the masses to the smaller segments and ultimately to the provision of individualized and personalized experiences. The real impact that is measured through value provision by impacting on customer happiness and particularly in enhancing the quality of life and, as far as people are concerned, their well-being. Dynamic management of excellence based on GEM is also associated with delivering an impact that is measured through superiority. The real standard that needs to be achieved through dynamic management of government excellence is to measure up against the toughest standards in the world and achieve at the highest level possible. The aim, therefore, which started with point number 1, through an inspiring vision and elevating standards to the highest level, must be concluded by achieving through enhancements, by measuring up against the toughest standards and achieving superior competitive performance levels. The shaping of future government is to be made possible by constantly realigning, seeking relevance and appropriateness, and changing through transformation so that there are no legacies that could hamper the progress of an organization and affect its positive momentum. The driving force that can orient the creation of a sustainable approach to dynamic management of government excellence is supported by 3 parallel philosophies, mindsets, approaches, or governance styles. At the basic level is governance itself, in order to ensure that transformation-based approaches to creating excellence in government is still to be subjected to transparency and compliance to standards of governance that any government puts in, so that it can discharge its responsibilities to the right level and fulfill the pledges that it makes in the right way and behave in a role model way to be trusted government and a government that works for its citizens, the communities it serves, and society at large. The second parallel dial is the way future government will manage resources using smart techniques and methods for the allocation of resources and for using resource management for drawing high levels of efficiency that can be reinvested for growth and development, and use dynamic management for creating synergy and allowing the principles of smart partnerships to be applied in a connected way for leveraging purposes, for sharing benefits, and as much as for sharing the burden of resource allocation and etc. This must be considered to be at the core of dynamic management of government excellence using GEM, and excellence therefore is not necessarily just about outputs and outcomes, but rather it is about the starting point of using smart approaches to resource management in order to avoid the burden of cost, which ultimately will impact negatively on the value provided to citizens and communities, and create smartness in managing resources internally, but also through leveraging and partnering in a smart way. The third element in this cockpit approach is guiding and directing through the principles of agility on policy development, particularly using insight-driven direction. Policy development in the static approach tended to be based on snapshots and on micro areas of focus, which are extrapolated or stretched to cover big pictures, and particularly for future development. In the digital era, however, this is no longer the case, as policy development is hugely boosted by data analytics and real-time access to models and simulations that can help crafting the right policies for the right approaches and guiding government organizations to make the right decisions and operate with the right frameworks and so on. Having discussed the meaning of dynamic management of government excellence based on GEM, this automatically paves the way for redefining excellence from different perspectives. At the basic level, excellence as a foundation must be based on the fundamentals of quality that must form the fabric of any organization that has high levels of ambition and which wishes to achieve at the highest level. Secondly, driving the momentum of excellence in any organization is building gradual maturity based on building the means that will ultimately deliver the ends in terms of outcomes. At various stages of development, the focus will be on higher levels of achievement and impact with more mature means and more mature capabilities. Likewise, the measurement of impact is also related to the achievement in terms of the extent of the value created and delivered and the level of impact generated on the direct beneficiaries. Ultimately, the real impact has to be measured in terms of the quality of life and everything that affects human beings. Real excellence and powerful excellence and dynamic excellence is also the excellence of sustainability. Durable excellence must be based on constant transformation and the use of agility in everything that an organization does, particularly agile transformation, so that no dead legacies are built and so that the organization continues to steer itself in the right direction and to achieve at the levels that are expected from its customers and to behave in an agile and highly responsive manner. Lastly, excellence is as much about the present as it is about the future. So excellence is about exploration. The future matters as much as the present, and an organization that has dynamic management for its excellence program is one that knows how to lead the future whilst managing the present. It is one that has access to greater insights and can explore, predict, and even prescribe how it can achieve at a higher level and how it can create superiority on a sustainable basis.